Finally, the upgrades for the Singapore GP. I got all the pictures and images. Let's go over them. There's a lot to talk about here, and there's even more coming for Friday. So if you guys want a part 2, more talking about the practice and the upgrades all together, leave it in the comments, give me a like, and subscribe if you already haven't, because that would mean the world. But let's get into this video. Let's start with the rear wings as we usually do. So obviously for this Grand Prix, it's going to be Monaco style of wings. It's going to be max downforce. And as you can see here, first of all, on glance, you look at the rear wings, but you also see the Alpine side pod. It is different. We'll talk about that later on. But as for the rear wings, Red Bull has a very loaded one, and it is new. It even has that little divot towards the top left of its rear wing, which I find interesting. It kind of dictates the airflow. They also cut the back, which was something introduced by Mercedes and Aston Martin. So picking up off of rivals, which is funny enough. They are the best car. Now they're making their aero-efficient car even more aero-efficient, which is scary to think. But that is kind of the upgrades that come with the Red Bull car. Not as much, and as I said, they're not huge like Marco was talking about. But yet again, out of all the wings here though, they've probably got the most loaded. Then it goes for Merc. Then I would say Ferrari and Alpine has probably the least loaded out of the 4 wings here. 4 wings is McLaren, Aston, Haas, and the Alphatauri. Now, the Alphatauri has a very big upgrade that we'll cover towards the end of the video, but Aston brought the same wing that they had in Monaco, different type of style though. McLaren have 2 spec wings. This is only one of the specs that they're actually using. They're going to be using another one with the actual cutout in the back, like Aston and Mercedes. And as for Haas and Ferrari are the only rear wings that don't have that aero efficiency cutout. So, hey, I guess they're copying Ferrari even in the bad parts. So there you go. The Haas team, the Americans. Yes, good job, Haas. Here's a better picture. I guess it's a little blurry, but it comes to show you what they've done with this rear wing. First of all, the divot that I talked about, that dictates the airflow a little bit. I'm shocked that that's allowed to be on the rear wing. I thought it had to be like nothing really on it, but I guess if it's a connector in the way that they kind of made it, maybe it goes still with the rules, but still, that is a good addition to their rear wing. I wonder if it's really going to add a lot of performance because Max again talked about the street circuit being a little bit difficult for them and it could be a tricky street circuit. So as I said, Red Bull is a little afraid here that they could lose the Grand Prix. Does that mean it will happen? I don't think so, but it's a possibility. There is a chance here that it could happen. Here is part of the upgrades for Alpine. First one being that they actually added like these little winglets onto their mirror. Now, they've added a lot of stuff for this Grand Prix. Singapore loves to bring big upgrades because it is a significant track like Monaco, so you need to revise the car. They brought these winglets on the mirrors, and let me show you the next part of the Alpine upgrades. So here is that side pod upgrade. Now, this is the above view, showing you that it's very much similar to the Aston Martin, really that slide pod. Now, obviously, they are the originators of it, but in this view, you can see what they have changed from its original one to now its Singapore one. They had this kind of double hybrid concept. They had that little divot in its side pod like Red Bull does to make it split into 2 different directions. Now, they were like, you know what? Just slide pod it, make it smooth on top. And yet again, they have a pretty big surface on its side. I'm assuming a lot of electronic parts are in that side, so they have to make it a little bit bigger. But there's one more thing here to cover for Alpine, and it is the front wing. The front wing, I guess they're actually getting hit by this TD directive. They put another metal flap onto it, so it is not really flapping in the wind as much, not getting them in trouble with this new TD directive. It's pretty significant, so I want to see where this direction takes them now that they had to kind of clap down on that wing. I think a team to look at is Alpine to see if they get hurt by this or if they jump up because of the upgrades all in general. They have this undercut now in the side pod in this next picture. You can see it is so similar to the Aston Martin car, like almost identical. I would say they are practically copying the Aston Martin philosophy, even though they are the originators of it. But this shows you more how they went away from that double divot in the side pod. Comes to show you the undercut that's a little bit more profound because the side pod is skinnier towards its inlet, but also how they still have some of the same philosophies as before. They still have these 4 little divots up top of the side pod, and now they have obviously the little winglets on the mirror instead of what they had before, which was pretty flat. So let's see what this brings. It's definitely here for aero efficiency, but also downforce. Here's a picture of the Williams with its new livery. I wanted to give my opinion on it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not a fan of it. There were a couple of other designs that I picked and I liked a little bit better. I like the back, like the rear wing looks really cool. The Duracell looks still as cool as it usually is, but I'm not a fan of this like retro orange lines that are in the back and kind of the front of the car. I wish it was done a little bit differently. I'm not gonna lie to you, but you know what? If it brings them a P10, at least a point, I'd be happy for Williams. Maybe Logan gets one, that'd be nice. Here's also another picture of the inlet for really the Alpine car. Wanted to show you from this side. It looks very, very similar to the AMR of last year, the 22, the B version. It looks almost identical to it, and that's probably where they're kind of picking up the pieces for this car. Hopefully brings them actually some significant gain. It's nice to see Alpine finally bring something, I would say, pretty big. They've had some floor upgrades. They've done pretty well, I can't lie. I mean, like, Zandvoort was great, and even Belgium was good for them, so hopefully their trend continues on street circuits, because in Monaco, they had a podium. Will they be back here? It's possible. They are pretty good in slow speed where the engine isn't that reliant, because their engine is, it's bad. I don't even want to use the words I want to say for it. It's a bad engine. If you've enjoyed the video so far, like I said, if you haven't subscribed, please do. It would mean the world. I'm on the road to 10K, and I make these videos every Thursday before the race weekends. Wednesday, got a couple different series going, so please join the channel. It would mean the world for me. Let's get into the biggest part of this video. As I covered earlier, I wanted to show you a picture side by side for the McLaren wing. You have the basic one that they've been using throughout the whole entire season. Yes, a couple of revisions, but still, they don't have that back part like the Aston and the Merc, and they have a Spec 2. Obviously, Spec 2 is being run on Lando and Spec 1 on Piastri. So they have a couple different comparisons. They also have different beam wings for the both of them. Not pictured, but yes, different beam wings, different setups. Here's an even better picture showing you how skinny this Red Bull wing is from the rear. It's crazy how significant this type of upgrade has worked for a lot of cars. It's so odd to look at too. It's so skinny and so plain. It almost feels like this rear wing isn't holding any weight, but obviously this is to cut on aero efficiency, but also see that divot even more here, how they kind of made it connecting, but also using it as a streamline for the air. Very impressive. They continue to innovate in their own level. It's crazy. And guess what? The Aston Martin diffuser mini wing is back. As I said, I made a whole entire video about this. If you want to go check out how this really little mini wing adds downforce to the car and why it's a significant player for really the Aston Martin car, go check out the video. But I'll briefly describe it. It puts the outwash of the car and really picks up the air from the diffuser. It does bring also a little bit of downforce. It is significant for them. They have a different rear jack here to actually be able to pick up the car at a better pace as well. So a lot of improvements for Aston Martin. This is a big race for them. They're back with a car that they expect could be a P1 performer here. Obviously, it's going to have to be a perfect race for them, and Fernando's going to have to fly, but let's see if they can pull it off. They were fast in Monaco. I expect a very good Grand Prix from them right here as well. But let's get into the biggest part of this video. It is the Alphatauri with its kind of hybrid concept. Let's talk about it. Now here it is. I mean, to me, it looks beautiful. I can't lie. When I saw this, I was like, oh, that looks mean. Too bad it's on an Alphatauri, but it is mean. So let's go into the analysis over this. So when you look at the floor is actually significantly changed as well, because now they've actually brought out, because of the side pod and the concept, a different type of outwash. Here's a comparison between the two and how it is significantly changed. They've kind of focused on that air going around that middle part to give them more rear downforce and really trapping the air. They've brought up those little parts from the underfloor. They've also now brought up the top of its side pod. Very similar to a Williams car, in my opinion. Now, still, they have that double side pod divot like the Red Bull. So copying in some way, but also their own type of style. Yet again, though, I would even compare this to the original Aston Martin slide pod, because look at the way that the side pod actually curves in from this picture. If you look at it closely, it does have that type of look. There are no pictures of the rear of the car right now, but if we were to look at it, it should remind you a lot of how the Ferrari looks now and the Aston Martin, because their side pods, they go in like this. Those side pods actually curve in, giving them that almost like circular oval type shape. And the Alphatauri is following on that concept. They were the only team that didn't really have that. Alfa Romeo still continues to not have it, and Haas. So I'm glad that they actually took some hints from that. But as I said, they still have that floor philosophy similar to Red Bull in the rear of its car. Talked about that in a video before. But with this undercut, it is a significant change now. The rear part of the side pod is actually very similar to the new W14 side pod, like the one that we saw in Belgium. So a lot of different concepts put into one. If I had to say what I think it's a hybrid of, it's got that Red Bull double divot, so I gotta say that. But it also gives me a lot of hints of Aston Martin, but a little bit of Williams too. It's like a very big mix. It's probably my favorite looking side pod on the car though. I don't know how much that's gonna matter, but it does look pretty damn cool. I can't lie. So this is a very significant upgrade for them. They've had the floor upgrades before, and there are some changes here in the philosophy because of the actual side pod going into the floor. So hopefully this brings them a lot more performance. Maybe they picked up a little bit from Red Bull, a little bit of whispers from Christian Horner on what to do, maybe from the actual technical director over there. Maybe Adrian Newey gave him a couple of hints. It's very possible. They are a sister team. Couple last things to finish up on. Here's another side picture of the actual Alpine and how the inlet looks on here. It shows you how much more similar this is to the beginning of the year Aston Martin. Very, very similar to it. Even they changed their engine, like the louvers to it too. So they have that little weird divot right there, but as I said, very similar to the Aston Martin. This picture is just of that Aston Martin front wing that is a upgrade. Looks very closely to the first W14 front wing that we had. So the front wing for Mercedes actually was said to be working really well, and it was great at aero efficiency. They just said it wasn't working for their car. So let's see if it works better on the Aston Martin car. A lot of parts coming for them actually tomorrow. Let me know your thoughts down below of everything that we've gotten in the Singapore Grand Prix. I'm excited. This is always a Grand Prix that delivers 100% rate of safety cars, so let's see what happens. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.